Well, hello again, family and friends of Community Presbyterian Church. This is Pastor Cruz with another episode of A Little Psalm Thing, and our little something from the Psalms today comes from Psalm 112 and verses 6 and 7. And this is a portion of Scripture that was suggested by a viewer, and I just want to remind you that if there is a psalm that is really meaningful to you and you would like it to be included in a future episode, just comment that here on our Facebook post, or you can message me privately, and we'd be happy to look at that in subsequent installments. For today, Psalm 112, verses 6 and 7. For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He is not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. Psalm 112 is speaking of the blessings of the righteous one, the one who is described in verse 1 as the man who fears the Lord. And the blessings for the righteous one throughout the psalm are some things that we're probably used to hearing in terms of biblical blessings. Talks about having a great offspring, having wealth and riches, light instead of darkness, having the presence of God, these kinds of blessings that perhaps we're used to seeing, especially in Old Covenant language. But the blessing of verse 7 stands out as unique, doesn't it? It says, for the righteous person, he will not be afraid of bad news. The one who fears the Lord will not be afraid of bad news. We seem to be hearing a lot of bad news lately. Almost any time you turn on the television or open up your Facebook feed or what have you, or even having conversations with one another, there's bad news to share. And people are desperate for some good news. I saw on the internet recently a celebrity who was desperate for some good news, created his own little news program in his living room where he shared heartwarming stories that people sent to him about good news that's going on in their lives. And he's tapping into a fear that we can all relate to, this fear of receiving bad news. But why is the person in Psalm 112 free from all of that? And the reason is because he has the greatest news imaginable. Remember, he's called righteous. The righteous will never be moved. He is not afraid of bad news. The righteous one is the one who is justified, we say in theological terms. To be righteous or to be justified means that you have a right standing with God, that you're on good terms with God. You know that you will not receive his wrath and his judgment for your sin, but instead you've received forgiveness. To be righteous means to know what your future holds. It means to know that heaven is in your future and not hell. And that is good news indeed. It's an eternally good news that far outweighs any bad news we might encounter in this world, the bad news that will inevitably come in a world of sin. And so this is a promise to us, this is a blessing to us. If we fear the Lord, there's something we don't have to fear. And that's any kind of bad news that might come our way, because we have the ultimate good news of forgiveness of sins and the righteousness before God in Jesus Christ.